Welcome. Okay, welcome everyone, and Moadim L'Simcha, Chag Sameach. Even though we're all sitting in our own spaces tonight,
Lamp up here.
we're in Reuven's sukkah. We're all there. Some of us are home, some of us are on balconies, some of us are not even here live, but we're here. And we're all together, we're creating a virtual shared sukkah, a gathering place without walls. Kind of suits the Zoom. Sukkot is a holiday of hospitality. Traditionally, we invite ushpizin, guests, into our sukkah. Usually the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, but they're busy everywhere else in the yeah, so let's make the circle bigger and add some other. We also invite symbolic guests, poets, ancestors, friends, and figures whose words and presence have shaped our lives. Tonight in this virtual sukkah, each of us has brought a guest in the form of a poem. As we read and listen, these voices will join us, not physically, but through language and imagination, filling this digital space with our spirit. Even though we're separated by screens and miles and kilometers, poetry allows us to share breath, rhythm, meaning. The sukkah's open walls have simply become the squares in our Zoom gallery. A different kind of hospitality, one just as real. And we're going to begin with a real detective. Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
Could I just say,
hello?
Yeah, you're not supposed to give it away, but no, because I had told Anne that I would have liked to have brought either Yehuda Amichai or Natan Zach, and they're real poets, and I could have read some poetry by them. But this is the Israeli Association of Writers in English, so I had to choose someone who wrote in English, and I told Karen it was ACD, and she had no idea who ACD was. ACD is obviously Arthur Conan Doyle. I actually had 5 possibilities. I could have chosen Professor Moriarty, Mycroft Holmes, Dr. Watson, or Inspector Lestrade, but I chose Sherlock Holmes. And the reason, first of all, among other things, the complete stories of Sherlock Holmes was my most treasured bar mitzvah gift that I got from my aunt. And the first time I ever visited London in 1976, the first place I went to was 221B Baker Street. Yeah. And I even in 1984, a particular symbolic year, I had a girlfriend in London whose father owned a row of houses on Baker Street. So I actually lived on Baker Street for a week. Now, in thinking about
Hillel,
Yeah.
I'm interrupting you and I'm being extremely rude, but I'm reminding you guys, just because I'm a mean person, is that we have a more or less 5-minute limit on each of us. So after 5 plus minus minutes, I'm going to remind you.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I'll make it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Anyway, in thinking about Sherlock Holmes, I've always considered I.F. Stone, I don't know how many of you know who I.F. Stone was, to be my role model for what it means to be a good journalist. But then it dawned on me that maybe it is Sherlock Holmes who was my original inspiration because of the way that he would approach and solve cases, and then in a certain sense, that's what a journalist tries to do in terms of understanding the nature of things. Now, Mycroft Holmes is a really interesting character. Sherlock Holmes' older brother, who always used to go to the Diogenes Club, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, which was a silent refuge for antisocial geniuses and gentlemen, with the idea of you just sat there and you didn't talk. And that was my original image of what an exclusive London club was like, until in 2012, I was invited to receive an award at the Oxford Cambridge Club, where everybody was very talkative. And the menu was the same as it was 200 years ago or something. Now, when I want to relax these days, I tend to watch episodes of the 50s version of Sherlock Holmes with Ronald, what's his name? Ronald Howard. Yeah, the son of Leslie Howard is Sherlock Holmes. It's really relaxing and entertaining, 26 minutes, and they seem to have endless episodes. And now something very interesting about the more recent version with Benedict Cumberbatch, which I think is really fantastic if any of you have seen it.
Yeah.
It turns out that Benedict Cumberbatch is related to Arthur Conan Doyle. He is his 16th cousin, twice removed. We've actually discovered this. One final thing maybe is that in talking with sister-in-law about the fact that I had chosen Sherlock Holmes, and remembering that famous story where he and Professor Moriarty fell off the Reichenbach Falls in Switzerland, and Arthur Conan Doyle's intention was, I'm tired of writing Sherlock Holmes stories. I've eliminated both of them. And there was this huge uproar. People said, you've got to bring him back. And I remembered what he did do is, yes, he found a way that they actually didn't fall off. And I remembered that both of them were saved. But apparently in the story itself, only Holmes is saved. But many of the versions which are on TV or in movies decided that Professor Moriarty is such an interesting character that they save him as well. So both of them are saved. And do I have another half a minute?
Half a minute.
Half a minute. Okay, just a story. Well, Inspector Lestrade is also very interesting character, particularly in this series that I watch on that was made in the 50s. And once I was with my family in near Marble Arch, not far from Hyde Park in London, and we had reserved the place in a hotel and got there around 12 midnight. I managed to get the suitcase into the door, and then the door locked and I couldn't get it open. And it turned out, apparently, the next day I discovered that the night guard had fallen asleep. And so I called Scotland Yard, not for Lieutenant Inspector Lestrade, but whoever was going to answer the phone. And I said, could you bring that special key that you have that opens all doors, because I've got this problem here. And they said, well, you've watched too much television. You know, in TV, Scotland Yard can do that, but we don't really have a key like that. So I ended up we rented a place around the corner. Next morning, the door opened, the suitcase was sitting there between the entrance door and the inner door. And, you know, life continued. So that's the story of Sherlock Holmes.
Thank you. Sherlock is a welcome guest. Now, I didn't mean to spoil the surprise, so I won't tell you who Mike Stone has brought. But
I know all your secrets.
Well, oh, you know, I should add that Anne really organized this evening. I'm just pretending to be
As organized as it is, but
yeah, and now everyone can put themselves on mute, and we can I'm hearing background noise somewhere. So, and maybe it's from me. Mike,
Okay.
who's your guest?
Yeah. My guest is well, last year I brought a guest who was from Andre Schwarzbart's novel The Last of the Just. And this guest is also probably the last of the just, but in reality. So my guest is Yeshayahu Leibowitz.
Oh,
Leibowitz was born in Riga, Latvia in 1903, studied chemistry and philosophy at the University of Berlin and medicine in Köln and Heidelberg before moving to Basel to finish his medical degree while the Nazis rose to power in Germany. In 1934, he immigrated to Palestine and took an appointment as a professor of biochemistry and later neurophysiology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where he taught for nearly 6 decades. In addition to publishing numerous books and articles on everything from the history of science to the philosophy of Maimonides, he was the editor of the Encyclopedia Hebraica and a frequent public speaker on Jewish thought, ethics, and philosophy. Leibowitz was a committed lifelong Zionist, yet he grew disillusioned by the use of Judaism as a political tool and as a justification for Israeli military occupation of the Palestinian territories. As an antidote, he developed his own secular brand of Zionism, which was simply the endeavor to liberate Jews from being ruled by Gentiles. Leibowitz challenged the notion that the Jewish people have a divine right to the land of Israel. He moreover warned of the dangers of idolizing sovereignty and military power. Divinely sanctioned land claims were, for Leibowitz, tantamount to a form of tyranny, or as he called it, Judeo-fascism. Leibowitz condemned the invocation of messianism and the sanctification of military power. These, he said, amounted to a modern incarnation of false prophecy and a prostitution of the Jewish religion. The occupation led to the erroneous belief that military force can be useful for solving political problems, including the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ascribing religious significance to the state and hiding its aggression behind a facade of religious piety constitutes a form of idolatry, he argued, that leads to moral atrocities committed in the name of the state. The occupation would hasten the destruction of democracy in Israel, where Jews enjoy rights and liberties such as freedom of expression and movement, while in the occupied territories, Palestinians are denied those same freedoms. Leibowitz also advocated for what is known as the two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is premised on the idea that just as the Jews cannot deny the existence of Palestinians, the Palestinian people cannot deny the existence of the Jewish people. In Israel, we are taught to obey and call that heroism. If obedience is heroism, then Adolf Eichmann was a hero, because in the end, his whole defense during his trial was that he was just following orders. Just an officer followed all orders. Here as well, we tell each other that the supreme duty of an officer is to follow orders, but Adolf Eichmann was just following orders as well, because whether we want it or not, Hitler's power was legal since it was supported by the vast majority of the German people. I even think that if that is the criteria of legality, that Hitler had a more honest support from the German people than any Israeli minister has had in Israel. And we can even say that if we remain within that logic, Hitler's power was more democratic than ours. Except that we forget that the essence of democracy isn't the rule of the majority, but the limitation of the authority of the majority. Democracy is that the majority is not allowed to do whatever it wills. If you define democracy as whatever the majority wills, then the Third Reich was the perfect democracy. What should we insist upon to avoid reaching bestiality? Two things. The first is negative. We have to admit that the people, the nation, the state, the homeland aren't the supreme value, and that he who holds them as supreme values is the fascist. Then we have to promote two types of attitudes. That of the believer, who views his essence as residing in his conscience and in his relationship with God, and that of the humanist atheist, who values his relationship with other men and with man in general. These two types of individuals, the religious man and the humanist man, refuse to see the state and the nation as supreme values. Leibowitz died in 1994.
Okay.
That was my guess.
And,
Yes.
tough guess to yours.
Tough guess, I know. He probably won't be invited to next year's ushpizin.
You never know. You never
Yeah.
know. But thank you, Mike. And our next guest was brought by Ricky Friesem. And you're going to introduce her.
Ricky,
You have to unmute yourself.
unmute.
Ricky, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuting. I had dogs barking in the background. Sorry. You're very lucky because I was going to bring Don McLean, the singer, and the lyrics of Bye Bye Miss American Pie, but I found as I was reading it, I was singing it, and believe me, you wouldn't want to hear me sing it, so I'll leave that to your imagination. And I chose somebody who just popped into my head the other day because all this news that we hear about immigration, I think immigration is the overall topic that is affecting the whole world and the politics of what's going on in our crazy time. And I thought about Trump and this ICE, these people who are being dragged off the streets because they're the wrong color or wearing the wrong clothes. And suddenly I thought of Emma Lazarus. Probably many of you, I grew up knowing about Emma Lazarus and what was written on the Statue of Liberty. First, I'll just read what you may all remember. The quote that appears on pedestal in the Statue of Liberty came from a poem called The New Colossus. And there are a few things there that are quirky, that are interesting to know. She refers to something lightning contained, and that was electricity in the torch, because she lived from 1849 to 1887. Electricity was still a curiosity, so that when you hear in the poem lightning in the torch, and she talks about the twin cities, and she meant New York and Brooklyn. They were two separate cities in those days. The poem is called The New Colossus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name a mother of exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands, you storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And it's kind of ironic when you consider what is happening in America at this moment. And Emma Lazarus it's very interesting. She reading about her changed my image of what it was like to be a Jewish woman in New York in the second half. She lived from 1849 to 1887. It was amazing. She died at the age of 38. She published extensively. She traveled to Europe twice. She was served on all kinds of boards. She became she grew up in a household of wealthy Jewish sugar refiner. The father was a Yekid, German, not Yekid, that's only in Israel. She was a German Jew. Her mother was Portuguese origin. The Jews who were exiled in 1492 moved to Brazil and came to help found New Amsterdam. So they were kind of the aristocracy of the Jewish community. And it was a secular family, which is although they were Jews, but they were secular, which was very interesting. And she became committed to Jewry in the course of her. She at the beginning, she wasn't particularly a Jewish poet. She had recognition as a woman. First of all, that surprised me. I didn't think a woman writer would reach fame so quickly and be so widely published at that point in history, and the fact that she was Jewish. When she heard about the pogroms in 1882 in Europe, and the Russian immigrants started coming to New York, she really, the emphasis, she became very social minded, did a great deal to help finance immigration. And she also, some of them claim she's one of the first vocal Jewish Zionists in America, because she did recognize the need that the Jews are going to have a homeland in Palestine. Anyway, so I found this all very surprising, something I didn't know. She was more than a name on a pedestal. She died, by the way, before she knew that her poem was going to appear in the statue. She submitted it to some kind of contest or something, but it was only put in place in 1903 after she died. And I just want to read, she wrote many things. One was a very long prose poem. Do I have any time left?
No.
Okay, so I won't.
Especially not for a very long prose poem.
Okay, no, I'm not going to read the whole poem. I just some excerpts. It was called "By the Waters of Babylon," and this is from the section called Exodus. And she describes exile, and she says, "They leave behind the grapes, the olives, and the figs, the vines they planted, the corn they sowed, the garden cities of Andalusia and Aragon, Estremadura and La Mancha, of Granada and Castile, the altar, the hearth, and the grave of their fathers. The townsman spits at their garments. The shepherd quits his flock, the peasant his plow, to pelt with curses and stones. The villagers set on their trail their yelping curs." I listened, no, where is it? I'm skipping. Whither shall they return? Shall they turn? To the west hath no, over again. Whither shall they turn? For the west hath cast them out, and the east refuses to receive. And that describes the situation we well know now.
Whither shall they return?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you. So important. Our next guest will be introduced by Anne.
Okay. Well, this is for something completely different. My ushpizin guest is an 11-year-old girl named Harriet M. Welsch, who is the star of this book, which came out in 1964 and which completely changed my life. I read it when I was the same age as the protagonist, 11. And by then I was a voracious reader, but I had never come across anything like the characters in this book. It was very, very, very unusual for its time. She may have been a child, 11 years old, but she knew what she wanted from life. She wanted to be a spy and she wanted to be a writer. And to further these ends, she took on herself a daily spy route in which she clandestinely checked out certain households every day and wrote down her observations in a spy book. This situation, essentially, she was keeping a writer's journal, although she didn't call it that. And after reading this book, I too began keeping spy books. And 60 years on, I can say that any ability I have to describe situations succinctly stems from decades of practice writing down the details of life in my own spy books. I have been doing it ever since. I have mountains of them in the attic with a lot of contraband information in them. Oy. And okay, now I won't go into the intricacies of the plot because there's more to the plot than that. But other than to say that she gets into big trouble over certain of her entries, but I'd like to share a short selection from the book with you. Okay? So here we go. She's on her spy route. Harriet had 3 more stops before she was finished for the day, but before she continued, she decided to stop by and see Sport. Sport is her friend, her best friend, and his father is a writer. On the way there, she got thirsty and stopped in her favorite luncheonette for an egg cream. I don't know if you know what an egg cream is. You can look it up. It was her favorite because it was there that she had first begun to hear what peculiar things people say to each other. She liked to sit at the counter with her egg cream and let the voices from the tables behind her float over her head. Several conversations were always going on at once. Sometimes she would play a game and not look at the people until from listening to them she had decided what they looked like. Then she would turn around and see if it was right. A chocolate egg cream, please. Certainly, Harriet. How are you? Okay. Harriet sat down, pleased that she was known. She put her 12 cents down and sipped away as she listened. My father is a rat. So I have to admit I handled that case in a perfect way, a really perfect way. I said to the judge, he's a rat because he thinks he's perfect. Listen, Jane, we have to go to Orchard Street and get that material. I can't live in that house one more minute without shades. Anyone could see in. Harriet had to restrain herself at this point from looking around at a new possibility for the spy route. If anyone could see in. You know, I've lost very few cases in my time, even if I do say so. He's such a rat, he never lets my mother open her trap. Rat trap, thought Harriet. You have no idea what it's like to hide all the time. Geez, I can't even walk around in a slip. Her egg cream finished, Harriet summed up her guesses. The boy with the fat rat father would be skinny, have black hair, and lots of pimples. The lawyer who won all his cases would be short, puffy-looking, and be leaning forward. She got no picture of the shadeless girl, but she decided that she must be fat. She turned around. At first, she couldn't tell. Then she saw the boy with black hair and pimples. She felt a surge of triumph. She looked at what must be the lawyer, one of 2 men. Then she listened to see if he were the one. No, the other one was the lawyer. He wasn't short and fat. He was long and thin with a handsome face. She consoled herself with a faint puffiness he had around the eyes. Well, no wonder she won't walk around in a slip, Harriet thought, looking at the girl with no shades. She's the fattest thing I ever saw. Enough. Only 2 out of 3. Some days were better than others. She slid off the stool and went on her way to Sport's house. Remember, Sport is the one with the writer father. Sport lived in an apartment that was up 4 flights of stairs. He opened the door wearing an apron and carrying a dish towel. Hi, Harriet, come in. I just got to do these dishes. Then what do you got to do? Then I sweep. Sport, you got too much work to do. Yeah, but what can I do? Somebody's got to do it. Once I didn't do it, and after a week, I couldn't find the living room. They went into the kitchen, and Sport continued to do the dishes. Harriet pointed toward a closed door to the right of the kitchen. Is he in there? Yeah, he worked all night, so he's sleeping. I got to go to the store and then get back in time to fix his dinner. I couldn't even fix dinner, much less for my father. How do you do it? Well, lots of times, it's Eggsville. Doesn't he care what he eats? Writers don't care what they eat. They just care what you think of them. Here, Harriet, hold this. I sure care what I eat. Just as she was saying this, Harriet heard a loud groan from the bedroom. She almost dropped the plate. Hey, what's that? Sport looked totally unconcerned. Nothing, just a bad dream. He has them all the time. Writers have a lot of bad dreams.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, and really it was for me, it was a seminal influence. I had never come across something that didn't treat children as idiots.
What's the name of the author again?
The author was Louise Fitzhugh, who was a study in herself. She was an out lesbian who died very young. She was kind of self-destructive, and she had a very peculiar life. And I didn't know anything about that when I got hold of this when I was 11. I don't think I would have understood it. But these people were so real. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
so anyway, that's me.
And you did them very well. I discovered a talent that I didn't know you had. It was really
Oh
good.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
What an assortment of people we're having.
Yeah.
Now, Reuven has invited his own guest to talk about tonight. Reuven?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, let me make sure I've got enough light. Let me show you a picture of my guest. You may recognize him.
This is a guest that never wanted to be seen.
You're right. Here we go. Can you see this?
No, only the top.
Okay, here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think his name is written
Salinger.
of his
Yeah.
picture.
I don't think I've ever seen.
I think that's the last picture there is of him, right?
Okay, so you understand who he is. And I will now read my write-up here. Interview with J.D. Salinger. The person I'm going to present tonight is well known to many of you. Jerome David Salinger was born on New Year's Day, 1919, to Miriam and Saul Salinger. Saul, the son of a rabbi, was a prosperous importer of cheese and ham.
Cheese and ham?
Some say kosher cheese and leave out the ham. Miriam, of German, Irish, and Scottish ancestry, was a convert to Judaism, although this fact was carefully concealed. Jerry Salinger only learned of it around the time of his bar mitzvah. Some say she never converted, but considered herself Jewish due to her marriage to Saul. Saul's father, an immigrant from Russian-ruled Lithuania, served as rabbi at a synagogue in Louisville. So here's Jerry right next to me over here. Jerry, people in this virtual sukkah know of your literary output. Many of us were and still are fans of yours. Perhaps some of us still hope for the discovery of unpublished manuscripts, but those hopes are dwindling since much time has passed since your death in 2008. It's 2010, in fact. Okay. So let me ask you first, can we expect to see unpublished manuscripts of yours in print?
Yes.
Well, when might we hope for them to be revealed?
As you know, I am not presently in control of any of my writings, published or unpublished.
Fair enough. Have you ever been in a sukkah before, virtually or otherwise?
Not that I can recall.
Were there any signs of Jewish observance in your home while you were growing up?
We were not even cultural Jews, while my mother did undergo conversion, or so I've heard, and changed her name from Marie to Miriam to please my paternal grandparents. It made no significant impact on our home life.
Why did you choose the life of a recluse? Why did you drop out of the urban scrum of New York and strive to blend into the anonymity of rural New Hampshire?
The question answers itself. My kind of creativity required privacy, and I found it amid small town life.
You were interested in Hindu, Buddhist, and Confucian ideas while you were alive, or at least your characters were. Now you're on the other side. Have you found verification for such beliefs as reincarnation?
I will answer your question with a statement of faith from my family issued following my demise.
Yeah.
Mr. Salinger is survived by Ms. O'Neill, his son Matt, his daughter Margaret, and 3 grandsons. His literary agent said in their statement that in keeping with his lifelong, uncompromising desire to protect and defend his privacy, there will be no service, and the family asks that people's respect for him and his work and his privacy be extended to them individually, collectively during this time. Salinger had remarked that he was in this world, but not of it, the statement said. His body is gone, but the family hopes that he is still with those he loves, whether they are religious or historical figures, personal friends, or fictional characters.
Thank you for your time, Jerry. It is a privilege to communicate with you.
A wonderful performance.
Yeah.
And thank you both for showing us, for introducing us to a wonderful guest. Now we have a couple more people, and our next guest is Libi Siporin. And I have to tell you that your guest is my second favorite poet in the world.
I chose Theodore Roethke, and but before I made that choice, I came up with 18 poets and writers that I would like to suggest or that I'd like to read from. I don't think there's time in 5 minutes, but after Psalms and Isaiah and the Odyssey and Primo Levi and Eugenio Montale and Adrian Rich and Emma Lazarus and Allen Ginsberg. I mean, there's so many, you could go on and on. I chose Theodore Roethke for a specific reason. One is that he has 2 lines in his poem that I find myself repeating again and again in various circumstances. And because in the middle of the poem I'm about to read is something of a blessing for guests getting together, and I thought it appropriate for today. So this is a villanelle, and it's called The Waking. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I feel my fate in what I cannot hear. When I cannot fear, excuse me. I learn by going where I have to go. We think by feeling. What is there to know? I hear my being dance from ear to ear. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Of those so close beside me, which are you? God bless the ground. I shall walk softly there and learn by going where I have to go. Light takes the tree, but who can tell us how? The lowly worm climbs up a winding stair. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Great nature has another thing to do to you and me, and so take the lively air and lovely learn by going where to go. This shaking keeps me steady. I should know what falls away is always and is near. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I learn by going where I have to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Libby, very much. Mark, our secretary, reminded me to send the mail out today and send the link. So if there are fewer people than we thought, it is my fault. And Mark, I thank you. And you are about to read. Are you here?
Yes.
Yes, I hear.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So last year I invited Casca to the sukkah from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And I'm staying with that play because I saw the movie, the one with James Mason and Marlon Brando. And then Shakespeare more or less stopped writing for the movies, 15 years or so, except vehicles for Olivier and Richard Burton. So this year I've invited Portia, the wife of Brutus. Her big scene is late at night after Brutus has hosted most of the conspirators. Brutus is left alone and his servant Lucius is asleep. Brutus has a lot on his mind and he says to his sleeping servant, "Thou hast no figures nor no fantasies which busy care draws in the brains of men, therefore thou sleepst so sound." Brutus is famous for being wrong a lot, and later in the plays we see he's wrong about that too. When he does wake Lucius up suddenly, Lucius says, "The strings, my lord, are false." The first thing that comes to his mind is, "Oh no, I hit a bad note on my harp. Brutus is going to be mad at me." So Lucius is worrying all the time. But the point at the moment is Brutus has plenty to think about. He's committed himself to assassinating a mentor, a man who may even be his biological father. And as the day approaches, I quote, "The genius and the mortal instruments are then in council, and the state of man, like to a little kingdom, suffers then the nature of an insurrection." Now, being creative people, you all know what it's like to be puzzling over some thorny challenge when in comes your spouse and says, "What am I here, a flower pot?" It probably happened to Shakespeare too. And that's exactly what Portia does to Brutus. She says, "Hey, remember, I even knifed myself just to show what I'm willing to do for you." Back in ancient Rome, I don't know how many people did things like that. Apparently it wasn't unknown, but it seems extreme to me, considering they had no antibiotics. Anyway, I imagine that at MGM they were saying, "This is Shakespeare. What actress can we cast who's really classy?" Greer Garson. No, Deborah Carr. Greer Garson can be Caesar's wife. So Deborah Carr is saying things like, "You have some sick offense within your mind, which by the right and virtue of my place, I ought to know of." Portia's asking what's bothering Brutus, but she goes on and on. She's eloquent, but she's got so much text. She's ranting. She's making herself angrier and angrier. And Brutus just wants to think, and he wants to calm her down and send her back to bed, but she won't shut up. She insists on knowing what he's thinking about. It wasn't really a job for Deborah Carr. It was a job for Betty Davis. Finally, according to the text I have, Brutus says, "O ye gods, render me worthy of this noble wife," apparently because she cares so much about what might be troubling him. And then there's a knock at the door and she agrees to go away. If I were directing the play, first there would be knocking at the door, and then he'd say, "Render me worthy of this noble wife," as a way of mollifying her as he hustles her out. Later, you may remember, Brutus goes out to battle. And when Portia hasn't heard from him for a while, she kills herself. Even in death, she mounts a distraction when Brutus has important things to deal with. And she has that timing in common with Lady Macbeth. So when in high school, I came to the part that said she swallowed fire. I thought it was a poetic way of saying she took poison. But according to the story, she really swallowed fire. She ate burning coals. Portia in Julius Caesar is not Portia in The Merchant of Venice. She's unstable. So welcome her to the sukkah, but don't upset her.
What a great sukkah we have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Awesome.
Wonderful. Wendy Blumfield is here with her guest.
Yes, okay.
Someone I have never heard of. So tell us.
No, because none of you are British.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a personal anecdote here because this guest I knew 60 years ago. His name is Barnet Litvinoff. He was my mentor. He passed away a few years ago, and I miss his wisdom and his humor. He was a Jewish historian and writer. Among other publications, he wrote a biography of Ben-Gurion and edited the letters of Chaim Weizmann. He also ran a publication office for the Jewish Community Organization in London and hired me as his editorial assistant. This was one of my first jobs. I was 21 at the time, and I spent my childhood and youth writing poems and stories, and I was terribly excited to have this job. Now, among our consignments was filling some pages in the Jewish Observer, and he gave me full rein, allowing me to use my byline and sharing all his knowledge in teaching, guiding me. Trying to improve my vocabulary, I was reading a page a day from the Oxford Dictionary. I was only 21, okay. When I had to write an article on Israel's Bar Mitzvah year, and I wrote refugees from the Akeldama of Europe, he came out of his office with a big grin on his face. What's this Akeldama, he said. A bloody battleground, I said. It's in the Oxford Dictionary. Then write bloody battlefield, he said. The average reader of the Jewish Observer won't know what you mean. And that taught me a powerful lesson about communication. Writing is communication. If your readers can't understand what you're on about, then you haven't succeeded. Now, I'll tell you about him himself, an amazing man. He was born in 1917, the year of the Balfour Declaration, to an immigrant Russian family living in the tenements of the East End of London. He had several siblings, and they all attended the Jews' free school. On the way home, they stopped at the library to do their homework because it was warm, there was light, and there were tables to write on, which they didn't have in their very miserable homes. He and at least 3 of his siblings all became well-known writers or artists. His brother, Emanuel Litvinoff, was an expert on Russian Jewry. Barney left school with honors, traveled to Paris and studied at the Sorbonne. When he returned, he married the girl next door, and they had a happy, harmonious marriage. His wife ran our office doing the accounts and kept him on track. Just a few more sentences. Barney was an effusive man, full of ideas. Some people said that he was enthusiastic about his own enthusiasm. But as my mentor, old enough to be my father, he was so generous and sharing. He had an acute sense of humor, and when my writing was a bit off track, we would laugh together. He was a modest and humble person and always gave me credit in front of colleagues. We kept in touch over the years. They visited us in Israel, and I was invited to tea with them when I was in London. They lived in an old Victorian house in Hampstead. It was always bread and butter for tea. And in fact, I wrote a very nostalgic poem after he passed away about his bread and butter for tea. I owe him so much.
Wendy, you know, I knew him and Sylvia well because he spent time at the Welsh Institute. doing research.
Where did you meet them?
Because I worked at the Weizmann Institute, and he was a very good friend of the chief archivist, who was a friend of mine, and I had dinner with them and went to the opera with them. It's funny, I hadn't thought about him.
That's right. He came to Israel a lot, and he had all these friends here. Wasn't he a wonderful person?
Yeah, wonderful person.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Wendy, what's the Oxford word for a bloody battleground?
Akeldama.
Say it again.
Akeldama.
Akeldama.
Aceldama. And I thought I was very clever using this word until he said, "Nobody understands what you're on about."
I've never heard it.
Oh. Well, at 21, I wanted to improve my vocabulary.
If none of us know what it is, this bunch don't know what it is, and probably it was the wrong word.
Yes, and certainly the readers of the Jewish Observer, Jewish suburban donors certainly wouldn't have understood.
The internet says that Akeldama is the potter's field bought with the money Judas had been paid for betraying Christ.
Is that the first meaning, and there's a second meaning, maybe?
An ancient ossuary on the southern extremity of Jerusalem near Gehinnom.
Akeldama? No, it was a bloody battle.
Oh, no, I found a third one. A field of blood.
There you go.
The name given to the field outside Jerusalem, bought with the blood money of Jesus.
There we are.
Oh,
Latin or Greek or
what?
That's strange because Damas, it sounds as if it's Hebrew, doesn't it?
Yes.
I'll call Damo.
Yes, yes. But he taught me so much. He was just wonderful.
What was his name? I didn't catch his name.
Barnet Litvinoff.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
The word Akeldama is considered to be Aramaic.
Oh,
makes sense because it has dumb in it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Fantastic. Has been such an amazing evening because not only did we have guests, but they interact.
You brought a guest, did you not?
I brought a guest. But I did not prepare a speech because I can barely talk about him. This is Yehuda Amichai, who is, without a doubt, the most important poet in my life. Yehuda. And even though I wrote a doctorate about Theodore Roethke, when I think of Yehuda Amichai, I am wordless. I found that I translated perhaps 150 poems of his, some of which have never been published. But when it was 1985, I was in the United States and I was invited to read at Nassau County Museum. And they said, come to dinner first and you can meet the guest, the main guest, your opening for. And it was Yehuda Amichai. And it was a very, he's a very common person, a very menschlich, talk to anyone. We had a very typical Chinese dinner. And then he opened his cookie, signed very, with great importance, and said, in another hour, you will be hungry. And I knew that this was someone that you could take and as a real person, and you can take as a poet. But as a poet, I discovered only later in the evening, because first I had not read his work. I opened and I read all kinds of cute erotic stuff. And when I was walking off the stage and he was walking on, he said, does your husband know you read this kind of thing out? So that was our beginning. We read in the Library of Congress. We read at the American embassy here. We read in a number of places, and every time he was just a mensch, that's all. When he was asked, how does it feel to be a poet? He said, I'm not a poet. I am a man who writes poetry. That has always been my guide since then.
Yeah.
A person, because it's the touch of the human is the most important thing for me, with that in his work. And I just wanted to read one poem of his, because we just passed Yom Kippur, and this is a poem that he wrote about Yom Kippur that I don't think is well known. On the Day of Atonement in 1967, I put on my festive dark suit and went to the Old City in Jerusalem. I stood for a long time before the alcove shop of an Arab, not far from the Damascus Gate, a store of buttons and zippers and spools, of multicolored threads and snaps and buckles, a splendid multicolored light like an open holy ark. I told him in my heart that my father too had just such a shop of threads and buttons. In my heart, I explained to him of all the decades and the events and the reasons I am now here. And my father's shop was burnt up there, and he is buried here. When I finished, it was the hour of Ne'ilah. He too pulled down the shutters and locked the gate, and I returned home with all the other worshipers. It's a good poem to remember about 1967, and he was a good person to remind one of our history and our humanity. So I wanted to end with that poem. Thank you all. I want to thank you all for opening your hearts, your libraries, your memories, for letting these voices resonate among us.
Really
This
funny.
hospitality.
This is a wonderful selection. I mean, learned a lot about all of you through these guests.
Yes, we learned about different people, and we could incorporate them all into our holiday.
Yeah.
So I wish you all Chag Sameach, and may the words we've shared linger like the rustle of the sukkah's roof in the night breeze. And thank you, Reuven, especially for bringing us into your sukkah.
Very much. Pleasure indeed.
And for not having to use your bell.
Oh yeah, it was on the ready. You guys were so restrained, Yofi.
So on time.
Because I hate interrupting people. I really do, and at the same time, but people go on and on and on. I think about all the other people who are waiting, and then I think I have to do something about that. So it's really great that I didn't have to do anything.
And could we hear the gong once, because it has a beautiful sound?
Yeah, this is if you're doing a meditation,
Let's hear it.
Yeah. You hear it?
No.
Oh.
Yes. I don't know where the microphone is. No?
No. Nothing.
Try again.
I'm banging on it.
You really?
No, we can't hear it.
That's very interesting.
The magic.
I've heard it. No, we're not hearing it.
No.
So.
Wow.
Well, then.
That's an interesting gong.
So you're lucky we restrained ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
You could have used my bell.
I didn't hear your bell either. Maybe,
I knew there was going to be a gong if we need it. So this is amazing. But all right, I think I should stop recording.
Hold on, guys. I just want
Yes,
to see one more thing. Do you hear this?
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
So there must be, it must be some kind of frequency situation.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you all from all of us part of the Israel Association of Writers in English, and I really hope that everyone has a wonderful holiday and that we'll meet again in Hanukkah. When we light the candles together. And so I'm stopping. Good night.
Okay. Good night, all. And
Good night, all.
Chag Sameach.
Moedim L'Simcha.